Wow, so the response to my last video was insane. I've been on YouTube for about 10 years now, making occasional videos, and I've never had this much response to anything I've made ever. If you subscribed or interacted with the video in any way, I can't thank you enough. It's really awesome to me that anyone would be willing to listen to me ramble about the colors of PS1 games for 7 minutes, and yet here we are. I wanted to address some of the comments made to the last video and elaborate on a few of the points. Starting with the title of this video. The game is now out of stock on Square Enix website and you can no longer buy it. Yeah, let me just start by saying I had no idea the video was going to get this much attention. About a month ago, this channel had about 100 subscribers after 10 years. I'm used to dealing with a very small audience of viewers. Now I have about 20 times that number because of the video. But that video was made under the mindset that a much smaller crowd would be watching. Because of all the attention, the game is now sold out on Square Enix website and they actually took down the page as it redirects to a 404 now. If I had to guess, it probably won't be back in stock, as I believe most of the copies were old stock from 2019. So yes, that's on me for bringing attention to it. You can certainly blame me, I won't hold it against you, but I ultimately was just trying to make a video about something I thought was interesting to a small amount of people. Why didn't you select the PlayStation filter on the website? This one was just kind of a stupid mistake on my part. I threw in this bit about scrolling on and on as a gag. Originally I was just going to cut to the link of the game, but I was trying to build some suspense for a dramatic reveal. This also mimicked how I found the game for the very first time on their website. It wasn't until people left comments pointing out the filter that's in my own video, I felt pretty dumb. Of course it's gone now because the game is out of stock, but as for in the video, yeah, I have no excuse for that. Sometimes I make pretty dumb mistakes. Did you know they were also selling PS2 games? Yeah, while I was making the last video, I did come across a handful of PS2 games that are still on their store page, as well as PSP games. So no, you might not be able to buy a PS1 game from their website, but you can still buy a few other retro games. And as a side note, while it might not be on the Square Enix website, you could still buy new copies of a few of the Square Enix PS1 reprints via Amazon. Why don't you just emulate or buy the game on Steam? These are both totally valid questions, but I'm going to give a more personal answer to them. On the surface, I don't have a problem with emulators, ROMs, ISOs, or anything of the sort. Same thing with Steam and PC gaming. I utilize both of these on occasion. They work great most of the time, they're convenient and cheap. However, while speaking for personal preference, that is not my first choice when it comes to gaming. I'm very much a physical media person. I love playing games and appreciating the art that they are, but I also like collecting them, because it's a hobby for me. I usually use emulators and games from Steam as a last resort, so I'm not knocking that method in any way. If that's the way you like to play, go right ahead, that's just not my first choice. My friends are like that too, which leads me to my next question. Did you buy your friend Chrono Trigger, and did you know Chrono Trigger on PlayStation 1 is the worst version? Yes, I did buy him a copy of the game from eBay. It's actually the copy I show off for comparison. That was filmed before I gave it to him. As for it being the supposed worst version, that I didn't know. We played it for a bit on his PS3, and yeah, the load times are a bit long. I'm actually hoping to rip the game to his hard drive and play it off that to see if the load times are improved at all. Yeah, it's basically a digital copy at that point, but at least he has a physical copy for his own collection as a backup if he wants. Ultimately, I wanted to gift the game to my friend, and I felt like a physical copy is more special than just a download code. Black discs, all my PS1 games are silver. I received plenty of comments that said something along the lines of, I have never seen a black PS1 disc, or black discs were uncommon, I mostly had silver. And this might be the most interesting topic to come out of the last video. I responded to a lot of these comments, as many as I could, and I would generally ask them what games they remember having, or if they could take pictures of them if they still had them. A few people said their consoles were modded, or that they lived in a country where burned copies were more prevalent, and that makes sense. Those people probably really did play on silver discs, just not legit ones. But a handful of others seem to remember having silver copies of PS1 games. Only a few could recall enough details to name some of the games they said were silver. The games I was given to look for silver bottoms were Dune, Rayman, GTA 1 and 2, Hogs of War, Spyro, Medieval, Shadow Man, Resident Evil, and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I did my best to find any kind of image or proof that any of these games were ever released for the PS1 on a silver-backed CD in any region, but I really couldn't find anything. The closest thing I could find was several games released that have silver tops, but still appear to have black bottoms based on the ring that goes around the center of the disc. The only consistent and reliable piece of information about silver PS1 games was the Game Rave article about the Square Enix variants that I already covered in my last video. Out of curiosity, I asked a friend I know if he had a PS1 growing up and if he remembered what color the discs were. He said he never owned one but played it a handful of times at another friend's house. He went on to remember the early discs being silver, But when he tried to research the games he remembered playing as a kid, all of the games came up as black, and he ended up misremembering. Sure, it's not an exact science, but it does seem to point towards a theory. The best conclusion I could come up with is that this is an example of the Mandela effect. I think it's possible people might be remembering playing PS1 games on a PS2 and confusing the color of the discs, or that some people really did have modded PS1s and they played mostly pirated games. With that being said, I'm not an expert on any topic in this video. I'm just a guy who likes talking about obscure gaming topics, so I'm more than willing to admit that I could be wrong about some things. If by all means someone watching has evidence or information that goes against anything I've covered in this video, please share it and talk about it. I'm more than willing to learn. Let me know what other kind of videos you'd like to see too. If you like this video or have anything else you want to share, I'd be happy to read it. Thanks again for watching.